everybody, and welcome to another episode here on my YouTube channel. And today I have an amazing guest. She started her entrepreneurial journey when she was a junior in high school. So, not a junior in college, a junior in high school. She was able to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars without giving away any equity in her business, build a seven-figure business as a young entrepreneur. And she's going to talk about that journey. But more importantly, I really want, if you're watching this, to really take the lessons that she's going to share. And one of the lessons that comes out of her story is that a lot of entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs do not move forward in pursuing their dream because they do not have the money. Meghan is going to talk about her story and how she was able to not let the lack of resources stop her from pursuing her dream, but it actually became the fuel and the driver that got her out there and really pitching her idea. And she was able to raise a lot of money. And like I shared, she's been able to build this amazing business that's changing lives across the world, and more importantly, really create that financial freedom that she was looking for and created for other people as well at a very young age. So without any further ado, I'm just gonna bring Meghan in. Hey Meghan, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well. I'm enjoying the Miami heat and humidity. It's very different than Minneapolis, but I'm here for Miami Hack Week and I'm learning a lot and excited to have this chat today.
Cool. So before we kick into it, I thought it would be cool by first showing a video that you talk about some of the things that was happening. So what we're going to do is we'll show this video, and like a DJ, we'll reel it back, and we'll start from the beginning, and you'll share your story of how you were able to create an amazing business plan, and from that business plan, you were able to raise a lot of money that you were able to put in to build your business without giving out a single ounce of equity, retaining 100% of the business, and being able to create this seven-figure business. That's amazing. So check this out.
And $10,000 and $12,000 and $1,000 and then $75,000, and that was my seed capital. And I didn't have to give away any equity, and I didn't have to have any investors kind of making decisions for me. I still got to be independent and run my own company.
Can you tell us what happened here? You were raising capital left, right, and center. First of all, how did you come up with the idea? And number two, what made you then go out to business competitions to start raising money for your business?
Yeah. So the idea was very simple. I was going to make a gift for my friend. She had type 1 diabetes, so her body just doesn't produce insulin. Nothing she did caused it, but she had to wear these wearables, and her wearable device would leave a circle tan line like all over her body when she moved it. And I thought it'd be fun for her to have a heart tan line, so I made these heart tapes for her chronic care devices. And I didn't like the materials I was finding in pharmacies. They were clear, which defeated the tan line concept, or they were woven and thick and would fray and fall off, or they would peel off and fall off. And so I took the present idea a little overboard, and I went to different labs from UPenn to Stanford, like asking questions, figuring out how materials work and what different mix and match combinations I could utilize to build the ideal tape for chronic care devices. I ended up finding the perfect tape that could stay on for up to 28 days. It, breathes, it moves with the skin. It was perfect for her infusion sets. I then gave these heart tapes to moms in Facebook groups so they could give them to their kids. And they told me that the material was so perfect, but I should have been making it for glucose monitors, like instead of pump monitors, because pump monitors only have to stay on, or infusion sets is what they're called, only have to stay on for 3 days. And the devices that they wanted me to make them for stay on for 14 days. And so that's actually a really fun cash flow story, because then I had to draw them by hand for 3 months until I could afford professional manufacturing tools. So that was super interesting. That's kind of how it started. And then how I raised all of that money was pretty simple in the sense that I heavily researched each of these business competitions to figure out and I also made a YouTube video for these if any of you guys want to check out my YouTube channel. I think it's definitely just my name, Meghan Sharkus. I talk about strategies and then techniques. And the strategy side was entering business competitions that I knew I like qualified to win. So there were ones from like the NFL where they're like, oh, if any athlete uses your product, you can enter. I could enter, but I would lose. And so I'd go into competitions for students because I was a student, and I would go into competitions for where I knew that I would stand out in the sense that when I was a student and I was a freshman, I would compete against other students because the judges liked that I was young. As I got more and more advanced with what I was doing, I felt qualified to enter in the other ones that adults were in. And I also forgot your specific question was why did I even get started doing that? I competed my business plan for DECA, which is a student organization. And I was telling my college tour guide about it. And she was like, oh, have you won any money from competitions? And I was like, I didn't even know you could do that. Like, people pay you for this? And she was like, yes. And then I was like, oh. So then I went in and just started winning all of them, which was very cool. It was because I was like obsessively researching and making sure that I was the most prepared, that I had an actual track record of building and not just an idea, because the first few that I like watched and observed were mostly idea based. So I knew that could give me like a competitive advantage.
Okay. So let's share a little bit about your business, because I think a
Yeah.
lot of people might be wondering, what is this mysterious business? And some people might know a little bit, but I'm going to add to the stream. So here's your website. So what is this, Meghan?
These are tapes that go over continuous glucose monitors. So someone with type 1 diabetes or type 2 diabetes, if they want, could utilize this device. Actually, if you don't have diabetes, you can also use these now to monitor their blood sugar levels so that they can give themselves the right amount of insulin. Because if you give yourself random amounts of insulin based on how you're feeling, that could lead to some long-term health issues. These devices used to be advertised as only able to be worn for 5 to 7 days. I think the big pharmaceutical industries were taking advantage of the fact that people kind of need these to live. And so because of better tape, we're able to double the wear time. And now big pharmaceutical industries are advertising that they can be worn for 10 to 14 days. And so I'm super proud of that. So people are paying half as much for their devices because they're using half as many devices, which is huge. And then there's also this design element that we realized was so important because, as you can see, that's on her arm. It's very visible. And so for someone to view someone else wearing a device, you might think they're sick. You might think people have asked them if it's a nicotine patch, all these things. Oh, and then kids. Oh my goodness, kids have no filter. If a kid sees another kid in their class and they think they look weird, they'll say, hey, you look weird. And so it's been a game changer for kids because now we get stories of moms saying, you know, my kid asked me the teacher called me and said, where's your daughter getting these flowers? Everyone in her class wants flowers too. And her mom was like, oh my gosh, is my kid like stealing flowers from the neighborhood? And it's like, no, these kids were jealous of her tape. Like they thought it was cool. And I was like, that is a way that you flip like judgment, especially for kids. Yeah. So I think I built it initially to do a design. It was so cool how it did like a full 360 because I built it for my friend to have a heart tan line. And then moms were like, no, you have to build it to keep these on. So then it wasn't about design anymore. It was like, let's save these families money. Let's keep these on twice as long. And then it went all the way full circle back to design where people are like, I used to hide my devices. I used to think having diabetes was embarrassing. It's not embarrassing. It doesn't say anything about them except for the fact that they have diabetes. Like they're still cool, awesome people. Now their devices actually say something about them. Like, oh, this person has diabetes and they like, you know, like florals. They're like a floral person or like they're a dog person or like we have like graffiti and like all these different types of like personalities. So it's like the device represents the person and not the disease they live with. So it like, and the most beautiful way, it evolved into having the utility of keeping devices on in a long and comfortable way, and also having the utility of letting people express themselves, hence ExpressionMed. Yeah, so that's the
the journey.
company at large. Yeah, the journey.
So
Yeah.
when I was a junior in high school, I would go to summer camp to like, go into the woods, and you know how summer camp is, right? You're like
I
out
haven't been to any
somewhere
cool
like
ones. Yeah.
hiking. But you went to a summer camp to learn how to write business plans. That's how you were
Yeah.
spending your summers?
I think summers aren't like the secret weapon that kids have that you literally lose forever if you don't take gap years and you just go into the career path. It's really hard to take gap years the older you get. And so I got the opportunity to be on the University of Pennsylvania campus for 6 weeks doing nothing but learning about entrepreneurship and talking to people who were building businesses. So it wasn't even just writing a business plan, it was having entrepreneurs come in and answering our questions. It was video calling with them. People taught us about like pricing theory and like properly doing customer surveys, not asking biased questions, being realistic about like what was the problem that we were trying to solve before we jumped into conclusions about what the product was. Like the biggest mindset change actually from that camp was that it was possible for someone my age to start a business. Like I 100% thought that people started anything that had to do with their career only once they graduated college. Like I just believed that as a part of growing up. And then at that camp, they were like, yeah, no, this person that just walked in the door, they started their business when they were 17. That person started a business when they were 14. That person started a business when they were 20. And they started real businesses at that age. And I just had honestly never been exposed to that. So like personally, and then to ask them how they did it and that they weren't some like crazy child genius born in a lab, like they were just like students from all over the place who were just passionate about something.
So a fun fact about me is I'm one of those kids. I started my
Yeah.
first business when I was 9.
Yeah.
And this was when I was still in Africa. And then I started my second one when I was in college. So, entrepreneurship, if it's in you and you're willing to take action, the key is taking action. You can start it at any age. And I think the sooner you actually start it, the better, because then you can kind of like learn all these hard lessons and get them out of the way, right? And then you can
Yeah.
really attack your business with a lot of confidence. So, what are some of the hard lessons that you've learned in building ExpressionMed into a multi-million-dollar business?
Oh, emotionally, the hardest lesson I've learned is about hiring and firing people. Everyone says hire slow, fire fast. But there's a lot of nuances in that they don't talk about, especially if you're a bootstrapped entrepreneur. So if you're someone who wants to be a person who starts a business without investment with low funds at the beginning, you are a bootstrapped entrepreneur. And no one really talks about how chaotic it is to take a business from $20,000 a month to $60,000 a month to $600,000 a month. Like this huge, like when you're making $60,000 a year, you can't pay a COO $60,000 a year or $100,000 a year. You just don't have that money. So in the beginning, it was my college friends, it was young people. And then all of a sudden the income doubled and they were like, so we're doubling our paychecks. And I'm like, wait, but all the responsibilities double. And they're like, no. Like, I just want to do my same job and get double the money. And I'm like, no. So you have to level up. Like once
You have to
I started
grow,
making
right?
like, yeah. So once I started making like $500,000 a year, I'm like, oh, I have to hire a serious like ops person. And then all of my friends that were doing ops who had never been trained for ops, they just weren't qualified anymore. And so sometimes you have to fire people, even if they were perfect at their job when you hired them, which is the hardest thing you have to do because it's literally the whole it's not you, it's me thing. But no one believes that. Like I've had friends that to their core were like, Meghan, we're such good friends. Like, you know, even if you fired me, we'd still be friends. It's 100% different when it happens because it's just like a stressful thing. So I've lost a lot of close friends over business. So I think that was something that a lesson that I learned is like, if you hire someone, be ready to like destroy your friendship. Like it's not guaranteed to happen, but you just need to be mentally prepared that it might. Like don't try to like protect it. Like just if it happens, be ready, you know?
So can I ask you a question? Did you maybe give some of these early friends who joined you on the journey, you know, equity, or was it part of that discussion, or you guys didn't talk about it at all in the beginning?
No, I didn't. Well, I still own 100% of my company. So there was never a point where I gave away equity. But I just put all of the cash from the business into paying them and building inventory. So my like respect level to them wasn't like, here's equity, which would have been worse, honestly, because when the business outgrew them, if they had equity, that would have been even worse to deal with, honestly. I just didn't pay myself.
And that was part of the reason why I wanted to ask that question, because
I
know a lot of entrepreneurs who are bootstrapping and they're starting out, an easy way out, right? Or a very tempting way for you to
tempting is better than easy. That's
exactly. It's like, hey, let me give you equity and then you work for free and you can help me build this, because sometimes it's kind of like you're desperate to really get your business off the ground and you just don't have the resources to pay people. But what you don't know is you're making a short-term decision that really has adverse effects on the long term, right? Because if these friends have a good chunk of equity and they can sway certain decisions, you actually find yourself in a much stickier situation. So that's the reason why I wanted to ask the question, because a lot of people might think like, oh, okay, I'll just give Brad 20%. I'll just give, Sam, 15%. And you're like Oprah, like you take this, you take this, you take
Oprah,
this. And then you just keep 51%, not knowing that 5 years from now, that 10% equity could be worth millions of dollars for someone who might not be able to contribute to the company what it actually needs, right? So as an entrepreneur, Meghan is actually sharing a very important lesson, which is, it's okay to be very protective about your equity and take calculated decisions as to how you distribute it and to who, and having advisors and people who can guide you through that process as you're starting out, I think is super important.
Yeah, and I have two pieces of advice to add on to what you're saying and how to help get people out of that situation where they feel tempted to give co-founders equity who aren't as dedicated to the long-term goal or who they don't see having that long-term potential. And one of them is what I did, which is to make the minimum, if you can make a minimum viable product that you can actually sell because it adds value, you can use that money to pay people so you don't have to give them equity. So for example, I would get my material in rolls and I would cut it by hand and color it by hand. So I'd have money to pay my staff and pay for the next round of things so that I didn't have to give away equity and take out loans and put myself at financial risk or whatever you call the risk of giving people equity. That's like a future chaos risk right there. And then another thing you can do is there's a lot of entrepreneurial opportunities for everyone, no matter what your age or financial situation, to make quick money by using your skills to pay the bills. So like if you're someone who can hack together a website, like charge like $600, or something like a certain amount. Yeah, do a side hustle and use that money to fund your business as an alternative to marrying an early employee and then not being able to get rid of them in the future. I think so many people are afraid of risking money because they don't understand the value difference between money and equity. They're like, I would give away equity so I can make these people work for free. And it's like, you think that giving away equity is better than paying people cash. That means that you think that cash is worth more than equity, which that means you're just not valuing your business properly, So that's something that you can do to avoid that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And on this channel, I talk about side hustles a lot. And in fact, I've a ebook that you can take that you can click in the description below that has 101 side hustles that I literally sat down, researched, and found that you can actually do. And it's super easy for you to then, spend an hour or two every single day doing a side hustle that then funds your dream. And you can use it as a means to an end. I did it when I was in college, when I was building my first business, and I still do have side hustles till now, right? Because that extra cash flow, if you can take it and invest it into something else that gives you a bigger return, it's actually worth it. So let's change gears and maybe talk about a
Yeah.
more relevant cultural topic right now. So if
Yeah.
you just Google, you'll see that there's a whole conversation about, female founders and things like that. I'm just curious, what are your thoughts as a female founder about the industry as a whole? Do you really feel that female founders have now been embraced by the marketplace, or you do still sense that there's a little bit of, not equal grounding? And also, for any young ladies out there who are listening, what words of inspiration can you maybe give them to really have that courage to step forward and become a female founder?
Yeah. I think how I think female founders are treated by, you said, the marketplace. And so I think that I've never had my product not purchased or a partnership not made because I was a female founder. The worst discrimination and just rudeness I've had to embrace as a female founder is actually going to events with other business people. Like, I've had people not take my business card, not ask what I do. I've been at founder events where people ask the person to my right what they do, ask the person to my left what they do, and then ask me who I work for. Like, the fact that they changed the language just hurt my soul. And I was just I don't even know how to respond to this person. So I think I've faced a lot of discrimination at events. And so if you go to an event and someone's condescending to you or mean to you or something like that, don't think that the marketplace is going to be like that. Those are just, immature people. Especially if you're young, you're going to be encountering a lot of young business people who might not really understand how the industry is. I've been invited to old money events, and I've definitely had people say okay, honey, this conversation isn't for you. We're talking business. But again, that was a social situation that had nothing to do with the marketplace. So ladies, if you're worried, the marketplace is amazing. They're so supportive. We actually started saying that we're basically a female run business. We have the majority of my managers are female. We also have some great dudes too. But we embrace that now because the marketplace, the people who are paying your bills are your customers, and they'll embrace you. And so don't worry about it. And I still think that you should read up on confidence and how you can phrase things, and don't try to say how do I speak less like a woman? How do I do stuff like that? But I think that I learned different ways to phrase things by pulling in mentors. Kuda, you'd mentioned having advisors to tell you things, having mentors to tell you things. When I could afford it, I hired a COO that I looked up to, not just as making my bottom line better, making my top line revenue better, but because of the way she handles phone calls and the way that she problem solves, because that's something that I think young women, the language that they're trying to steer away from is when you're too nice and when you're phrasing things I used to tell people oh, can we not do it like this? And here's why. And it sounds so timid. And then my COO, who's amazing at business, is oh, you want to do it that way? That doesn't make sense. Doesn't it make more sense for both of us to do it this way? Here are the benefits to us. Instead of being oh, we should probably, because, this is why. She's oh, that's just silly. This is a much better way to do it, right? And they always enthusiastically are right. So we say the same thing, but she says it in such a lighthearted, positive way that's confident that, it just changes the conversation and the mood of the conversation. And so I think find those mentors who observe yourself, of course, and then observe your mentors and observe the results of your conversations, and then find those differences and school outside of school, apply it to you, see if it works. You said diversify your income, side hustles are great. I always say also diversify your education. So you get really good education from school, you can get really good education from online resources, but also make sure that you're taking those education opportunities from your mentors and your experiences as well. And so I like made little charts in my like office space of like, oh, am I getting my education from online this month? Like, am I getting my education from people this month? And when I'm not, I like find a good learning video or I find a good person to learn from. I think that's made me infinitely smarter than when I was like, I'm just making it up, fam. I hope that answers the question. It's for women and dudes. Like, find mentors, learn from them. And if people are mean to you in a social scenario regarding business, that doesn't mean the marketplace is going to let you down like that, you know?
Yeah. So below, as you can see, it's talking about the entrepreneurial mindset, because obviously on this channel, what I really want people to get out of this is really that, because it is the mindset that then unlocks everything, right? Because if you have a mindset that's not entrepreneurial, or a warrior mindset to just kind of like break through the barriers when you're trying to self-sabotage yourself, you won't really get far. So what are some of the key qualities that you believe that any entrepreneur needs to have in order for them to really have a firm grip of the challenges and the ups and downs that, you know, entrepreneurship brings? Because sometimes people are always thinking about that big exit, but the road to that big exit requires for you to have an entrepreneurial mindset that's really strong, that's founded and grounded in some really core principles. So I'm just curious to hear what you think. What are some of those core principles that any entrepreneur should have when they're embarking on the journey?
Yeah. And I know there's lots of different types of entrepreneurs. Like there's, you know, selling your skills and services as entrepreneurs, and there's inventing things as entrepreneurs. But my favorite entrepreneurship mindset skill that really sets people apart, the people that create new things, is like, you know, people are like, I won't take no for an answer. I love taking no for an answer and then like changing it to a yes on my own. And then that's the business. Like I would call people and be like, hey, can you print on this medical adhesive? And they'd say no. And then I was like, oh, put it in my pocket. I'm going to make it a yes. But not like people take that in a different way where like, don't take no for an answer. Like they try to convince them with words. It's like, no, if they say if they tell you it can't be done, go figure out how to do it and then charge people for it. Like that's pretty cool. So I've seen that in a lot of industries when people are like, oh, you can't, you know, freeze dry this vegetable that everyone wants to add into all of their like nutrient packs or whatever. If someone says, no, you can't do this, like there are people in the food industry that'll be like, I'm going to figure it out and then sell it to everyone because everyone else thinks you can't do it. Don't take no as an answer. Take no as a challenge. Like if they say no, like maybe you can't figure it out, but like take it as a challenge, like try. Like that's such a cool entrepreneurial mindset to have because that's how you find new stuff. Is stuff that other people don't believe exists, which I think is really cool. And then I need to write that down. And then the other one is like you said, entrepreneurialism is a roller coaster. Yes, there will be days when like you're making 100 grand more than you thought. There will be days when like your inventory didn't show up and you're having to write like thousands of emails being like, hey, this is going to be delayed. And that's a lot. The issues get bigger and bigger as your country, oh my gosh, as your company gets bigger and bigger. It's been a long day. As your company gets bigger and bigger. And I think the entrepreneurial mindset needs to have a little element of stoicism. In the beginning, my mind,
right? Like salt bay.
Yeah. I think study a little bit of stoicism. Talk to a therapist if you're overwhelmed. I used to be very emotional. If things were crazy, like it would make me like stress and like sweat, and my heart rate goes up. And if things were really, really good, I'd be like, literally, this is the best thing ever. Oh my gosh. Like, I would just feel those emotions so heavily. But it kept getting bigger. And like, if you let those hormones like affect your judgment and you're like taking action in that like crazy and a crazy high or a crazy low, it can like really make your life a lot. And so I think the entrepreneurial mindset that I recommend is take no as a challenge, and then also try to invest in some like emotional stoicism. So knowing that the more successful you get, the higher the highs get and the lower the lows get, so that you can handle it and be a healthy, happy person as it comes.
Awesome. So the other question I have is that, you know, we only have 24 hours in a day. I was explaining it to one person that I coach and mentor, because I do mentor a handful of entrepreneurs who are starting out. And I was explaining it in the way of like, think of each hour as $1. So every day you wake up, you have $24. And then as each hour passes, you're spending $1. So if you spend 15 hours sleeping, you've basically taken that $15 and just given it to sleep. And now you only have 9 left. Since we all have 24 hours or $24 each day, becoming super productive is key, right? If you want to accomplish a lot, because your input in terms of time is the same, but you want to accomplish more. So you want to get more done. So as an entrepreneur, what are some of the things that you do so that you are super productive and you're just not wasting time on things that put out small outputs? You really want to focus on things that give you big outputs. So how do you manage your time and stay productive?
I love this question because I used to think it was about like, oh, I used to type 10 words a minute. Now I type 20 words a minute or something like that. And then my favorite tactic for this that I recommend to all entrepreneurs is record what you do for an entire day. Like, don't try to do anything special. Just record like how much time you spend doing each thing. And you'll realize where some huge money drainers are if you count your day as $24, or huge time drains are, that if you eliminate those, you can like add 3 hours to your day. So, and I do this audit like once a quarter, because if you do it every day, you'll drive yourself crazy. And in college, it was talking to my roommates. I would, hustle in the morning, go to class, hustle in the evening. Like I was like booking calls in between everything, eating food on buses, in Ubers, typing on my computer in Ubers, like optimizing. And then I'd come home and I'd talk to my roommates from like 7 p.m. to like midnight. That's 5 hours. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm just winding down from the day, just catching up.
So it was like you were giving out like $5 a day,
Yeah.
if $1 is an hour, like you're just like, hey, there you go, there you go, there you go.
Yeah. And then
but the cool thing
TikTok
is you learn
happens,
from that.
and yeah.
Okay. So now what does an average day look like? Like what time do you wake up? What are some of the things you do when you get up, and what time do you go to bed? Just kind of like walk me through from kind of like when you wake up in the morning and when you come back and hit the sack. What does your day look like?
It depends on what season I am in. I have like 2 like productivity seasons. I realize that I can only be creative at like crazy hours, like 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. And I do the best work at 5 a.m. So I don't recommend this to anyone because it's really bad for your circadian rhythm. But when I'm in a phase where I need to do creative work, I go to bed at like 1 a.m. and wake up at 9. And then in a phase where I have to just like crank out a bunch of stuff, I wake up at 5 and go to bed at 9. And I like cycle it, which is not healthy, but it's way healthier than like losing sleep or whatever. So that's what I do. I don't think that's clinically recommended by anyone, but that's genuinely what I do. So then I like take multivitamins and drink water and like water my plants and do a lot of like movement before I even touch my computer, so that I can like wake up my body and like get some sunlight in my eyes and stuff like that. And then I always eat breakfast, like a larger breakfast, because I've been doing a lot of metabolic health research, and your insulin sensitivity is higher in the morning so that you can digest food and like utilize that as energy better. And then it's lower at night. So I like stopped eating food when it's dark. And as soon as it gets light out, I eat like a substantial like nutrient meal with like fiber and all that stuff, which is usually salmon toast or oatmeal. That's where I live.
Nice.
And then yeah,
that's super delicious. So let me ask you one last question, and then we can kind of like wrap it up. So I want you to close your eyes.
Right.
Take a deep breath. It's year 2025. Can you just tell me where ExpressionMed is in terms of revenue, impact? Close your eyes. I want you to kind of like dream.
I know. I always look at things. Yeah.
Where it is in the marketplace, how many people work for it? Are you still leading it? So just tell me 2025, what's happening with ExpressionMed?
Yeah. So do I have to keep my eyes closed for the
You can open them up now. I just
really
wanted you to focus on that picture.
Yeah.
Now so paint that picture for us, because I really believe that words of power to create, and you can actually speak things into existence if you believe enough, number one, and also if you then take the action. But what's key is to actually have the vision. So share
Yeah.
with me your vision for 2025 for ExpressionMed.
Yeah. So the beautiful thing about this is I've like very specifically talked about this recently is in 2025, I fully believe that ExpressionMed is going to be, we're taking our core team and their core functions and we're building out solutions in similar health spaces, but not necessarily exactly what we do now. So there are market trends that my team is seeing that we're creating solutions for. And so I can't say specifically, but we won't just be a tape company. And I guess what that makes me think of that I haven't really talked about in interviews before is like if you find really cool team members that like vibe with you and teach you and things like that, don't connect them to just one company. Or if you find like a certain process or way of doing things, don't like limit yourself to one product. There's so many companies that can expand into multiple products. There's so many companies that like build a software to go with their products, but then they find that the software is like even better than the product and they lean into the software. And I think that's what my team has done is there's processes. I'll tell you that we're not doing tech because that's something that everyone's like, oh, so you're going to do tech. But there's processes that we're building out into new solutions that we are very excited for. So I think in 2025, ExpressionMed is going to be very different, but I can't, it's so hard for me to project revenue numbers because I told you I'm a realist. I really like to get things exactly, or that might have been in a prior conversation today. I really like heavily researching things before I put my money behind them. And so I hate projecting out broad numbers.
Yeah,
like,
you want to be like
yeah.
$10 off, give or take. That's kind of like that's your range of accuracy you try to hit. But I really appreciate it. And here's the thing. What I'll tell you for sure is, for you to go to that vision that you're trying to go to, you're going to step outside of your comfort zone. But the key thing is that growth only comes outside of your comfort zone. You won't grow when you're stuck in your comfort zone. So be ready to be challenged, but also be ready to face the challenge and take it on head on, and then create that vision that you have for ExpressionMed. And I love your story for so many reasons. I think you've showed that age is nothing but a number. You can build a multi-million-dollar business, when you're in college and you're young, less than, 25 years old or whatever it is, you can still do it. All you just need is some really good people around you, an amazing plan, and, just the desire and an appetite to execute. So I love that about your story. Number two is that if you have a really good idea and you're willing to go up and share it with the world, you will attract the resources that you need to turn that idea into a reality. A lot of people take amazing ideas to the grave. They just don't have the confidence to share them. They don't have the confidence to actually sit down and research and write out a plan as to how they can turn this idea into an actual, abstract business. So I think your life really demonstrates that in a very amazing way. And the third thing I like is that you show that you can have fun while doing all of it, right? A lot of people think that business, now you have to be serious, you have to behave a certain way. No, you can create a culture that fits you and your personality. You can enjoy being an entrepreneur. You can enjoy being around the people that, you spend, a third of your life, right? You spend 8 hours at work. So you can really make it fun and create a really amazing and engaging culture. And as I look at ExpressionMed online and the type of brand personality that you guys have, it shows me a group of people that are enjoying themselves, that are having a lot of fun, changing the world, and really creating a lot of value for the business. So with that, Meghan, I just want to say congratulations. And I can't wait to see where you can go. And you can always use me as a resource. I'm more than happy to help you, either connect you to certain people that I know, or if there are things that I myself can help, given the experience that I've had launching over 7 businesses at this point. more than happy to be there for you. So anyway, go back and enjoy that Miami heat, and can't wait to connect with you soon.
Yep. All right. Thank you so much. Bye.
Take care. Bye.